The stray lights, the night was quiet. The countryside slept under a blanket of stars and the cold wind whispered through the tall grass. A broken wooden fence creaked softly as the wind passed. Far away, an old pickup truck rumbled along a lonely, dirt road. Behind the wheel sat Jake Carter, a simple mechanic living in a small farmhouse at the edge of town. He had spent the whole day fixing engines and changing tires, and all he wanted now was some rest. But tonight was different. As Jake drove past the dark forest, he saw two strange lights falling from the sky. They weren't like shooting stars. They were brighter, moving faster and getting bigger by the second. Then came a loud crash. The ground shook beneath his truck, and birds burst out of the trees, screeching into the night. Jake slammed the brakes and stared at the glowing smoke rising from the forest. For a moment he hesitated. His heart pounded. "Should I call someone?" he whispered to himself. But curiosity won. He grabbed his flashlight from the glove compartment, stepped out of the truck, and slowly walked into the woods. The crash site. The forest was silent except for the sound of his boots crunching over fallen leaves. The air smelled of burning metal. He followed the faint glow ahead until he finally reached a small clearing. Jake froze. In front of him was a strange silver pod, half buried in the ground. Its surface was smooth, almost liquid-like, and it hummed softly as if alive. Sparks danced from a broken panel and smoke curled into the night air. Inside the pod, through a cracked glass dome, he saw two small figures. Children. At least they looked like children, but not human. Their skin had a faint blue shimmer under the moonlight, and their heads were slightly elongated. Their tiny chests rose and fell weakly, as if they were struggling to breathe. Jake's hands trembled. What the hell are you?" he whispered. A difficult choice. One of the small figures stirred, letting out a soft, broken sound. It sounded scared, hurt, vulnerable. Jake looked around, expecting someone, anyone, to appear. But the forest was empty, and the strange pod lay silent except for the faint hum. He pulled the cracked door open and gently lifted the two small beings into his arms. They were lighter than human children, almost weightless, and their skin was ice cold. He hesitated again. Should he call the government, the police, the military? But something deep inside told him not to. He didn't know why, but he felt responsible. Whoever these beings were, they needed him. "All right, little ones," he murmured, his voice shaky. I'll take care of you." He wrapped them in his old work jacket and carried them back toward the truck. Unwanted attention, as Jake placed the twins carefully in the back seat. A strange buzzing sound echoed in the distance. He looked up. A small black drone floated above the treetops, its red sensor lights scanning the ground. It made no sound except for the low hum of its engines, but Jake's instincts screamed danger. He turned off his flashlight, grabbed the keys, and drove away slowly, keeping his headlights low. The drone hovered for a moment, then shot off into the sky, as if marking its target. At home back at his farmhouse, Jake laid the twins on his old couch. He switched on a dim lamp and finally got a better look at them. They had large, glassy eyes, closed now in sleep. Their clothes were strange, thin silver fabric that clung to their tiny bodies. Around their necks hung small pendants glowing faintly, with symbols Jake had never seen before. He grabbed a wet towel and carefully cleaned the soot from their faces. "Who are you?" he whispered. Suddenly one of the twins stirred. A soft, weak voice escaped its lips. Words Jake couldn't understand, spoken in a language he had never heard. Then, as if sensing his confusion, the other twin slowly opened its glowing blue eyes and whispered something in perfect English. "They will find us." The first warning. Jake froze. His chest tightened as the word sank in. "They? Who?" he asked softly, leaning closer. But the twin didn't reply. Its eyes fluttered shut, and it fell back into unconsciousness. Outside, the wind howled louder, rattling the loose windows of the farmhouse. Far away, thunder rumbled, But it wasn't thunder. It was something else. Something coming. The suspense builds. Jake closed the curtains and locked the doors, his mind spinning. Who were these twins? Where had they come from? And more importantly, who was hunting them? His instincts screamed at him to leave, to drop them at a police station and walk away. But every time he looked at their fragile faces, he knew he couldn't. He didn't know why, but a strange feeling told him this was bigger than he could imagine. Outside, far above the clouds, 3 unknown ships entered Earth's atmosphere. Their dark, sharp silhouettes glided silently through the night sky. They weren't here for peace. They were here for the twins. The strange twins. The farmhouse was silent. Outside, the cold night stretched endlessly, but inside, the weight of danger filled the air. Jake sat on the couch, staring at the 2 strange beings sleeping under an old wool blanket. The words kept echoing in his head. They will find us. He didn't know who they were, but deep down he knew one thing for sure. Whoever they were, they weren't human. Restless night, Jake barely slept. Every sound outside, the rustle of leaves, the creak of old wood, the distant howl of a coyote, felt like footsteps approaching. At around 3 a.m., he heard a faint buzzing again. He tiptoed to the window, carefully parting the curtain. Another, black drone hovered above the farmhouse, scanning with red laser dots. Jake cursed under his breath. He quietly reached for his old hunting rifle and turned off every single light. Then something strange happened. The pendants around the twins' necks began to glow faintly, pulsing in rhythm, like beating hearts. Suddenly the drone stopped scanning and flew away. The awakening morning came, gray and silent. Jake brewed a pot of strong coffee, his thoughts tangled with fear and confusion. Then he heard a sound, a soft humming, coming from the living room. He rushed over and froze. The 2 twins were awake. Lyra, the smaller one, sat cross-legged on the couch, her glowing eyes fixed on Jake. Cale, the taller one, stood near the window, his hand raised toward a floating wrench spinning slowly in the air. Jake's jaw dropped. You're moving that without touching it. Cale tilted his head as if trying to understand. Then, without a word, the wrench dropped and clanged on the floor. Lyra finally spoke, her voice soft, musical, and strangely calm. We should not stay here. Jake blinked, struggling to find words. You can speak English? She nodded slowly. Your mind speaks. We listen. Jake rubbed his temples. Great. Now you're reading my thoughts too. Clues from the pod. Jake took them to the barn where he'd hidden the damaged silver pod. The air still smelled faintly of burned metal. Kyle walked straight to the wreckage, placing his tiny hand on the surface. As he touched it, the pod responded, releasing a soft blue glow. A holographic projection flickered above the pod. Jake stepped back, eyes wide. A tall, regal alien figure appeared, speaking in a deep, commanding voice. The language was alien, but as the hologram played, Lyra's pendant lit up and translated the message into English. To whoever finds them, protect the heirs. Do not let the Dominion take them. If they fall, the Empire falls with them. Jake stared at the twins, speechless. Heirs? He whispered. You're alien royalty? Cale lowered his gaze. They killed our family, he said quietly. Now they hunt us. The threat revealed, Jake tried to process everything, but before he could speak, Lyra's pendant started glowing brighter. And then, a warning sound filled the barn. Tracking signal detected. Cale's face tightened. They found us. Before Jake could react, a loud sonic boom shook the ground. Outside, clouds parted as a massive black ship appeared above the forest. Its surface was covered with strange markings, and underneath it, dropships detached and descended like predatory birds. Jake's instincts screamed, run. Now. The factory hideout, he grabbed the twins and sprinted toward his old truck. Tires screeched. On the dirt road as he drove deep into the abandoned industrial zone on the edge of town, they reached an old metal factory, rusted and silent, hidden behind thick, overgrown trees. Inside, Shadows swallowed them whole. Jake led them through dusty corridors, broken machines, and piles of scrap. He found an old storage room and pushed the door shut behind them. Breathing hard, Jake whispered, "All right, we hide here until they're gone." But Cale shook his head. "They will not stop. They can smell our energy. No place is safe." The first encounter, suddenly the air changed. A low mechanical growl echoed through the empty factory. Jake peered through a broken window and saw them, Dominion soldiers. Tall, armored, their faces hidden behind dark helmets, each carried a plasma weapon humming with deadly energy. One soldier raised a scanner device. A piercing sound filled the air. "They know," Lyra whispered, trembling. Jake clutched his rifle tightly, whispering under his breath, "Stay behind me. No one's taking you." The power unleashed. The soldiers kicked open doors, moving closer. Jake prepared to fight. But before he could pull the trigger, Cale stepped forward. His pendant blazed with white light. Suddenly, every piece of metal in the room, pipes, bolts, screws, ripped free from the walls and shot forward like a storm of knives. The nearest soldier was thrown back, slamming into a wall with a metallic crash. Jake froze, staring at Cale. You just did that?" Cale's glowing eyes dimmed and he staggered weakly. Lyra caught him before he fell. "His energy is fading," she whispered. "We cannot use our power too much, or we die." The hidden message. The old factory shook under the weight of danger. Above, the Dominion mothership hovered silently like a dark predator in the sky. Its engines made no sound, but the ground trembled under its invisible force. Inside the storage room, Jake crouched low, holding his breath. Lyra clung to his arm, her glowing eyes wide with fear. Cale leaned weakly against the wall, his pendant, dim, drained from the last surge of power. Outside, red drones buzzed like angry hornets, scanning every inch of the abandoned factory. "They're closing in," Lyra whispered. Jake tightened his grip on his rifle. He wasn't a soldier, but at this moment he knew one thing. He wasn't going to let them take the twins. A dangerous escape. Jake peeked through a small crack in the metal door. 3 Dominion soldiers moved silently down the corridor, their armor glinting under the faint factory lights. Their weapons pulsed with strange blue energy. "All right," Jake whispered, forcing calm into his voice. "We move when they turn the corner." But just as he reached for the door handle, Kyle grabbed his wrist. "Wait," the boy said softly. I can do something." Before Jake could stop him, Kyle raised his trembling hand. The pendant around his neck began to glow faintly, and suddenly the factory's lights exploded, plunging everything into total darkness. For a few precious seconds, the soldiers were blind. Jake grabbed the twins and ran. The hallway stretched endlessly, their footsteps pounding against the cold concrete. Behind them, alien voices barked commands and the heavy sound of boots echoed closer and closer. The holographic secret. They finally reached an old maintenance tunnel, hidden behind a rusted panel. Inside, it was narrow and damp, with dripping pipes and walls covered in peeling paint. Jake set the twins down carefully, trying to catch his breath. Lyra, still shaking, placed her pendant against the wall. The symbols on it shifted, rearranging into something new. Suddenly, a holographic map appeared, projected into the air. Jake's eyes widened. What is this?" Lyra stared at the map, her voice quiet but steady. "It's our family's last message. The pod carried more than us." She touched a glowing point on the map, and the hologram zoomed in, showing a hidden chamber deep beneath the Earth's surface. Cale whispered softly, his voice shaking. "That's where the crown key is." Jake frowned. "The what?" Lyra turned to him, her glowing eyes reflecting the hologram. "The artifact that awakens our true power. Without it, we can't stop the Dominion. With it—" She hesitated. "We can change everything." The hunter arrives. Before Jake could reply, the tunnel vibrated violently. Dust fell from The ceiling. A low, mechanical growl filled the air. Then a deep, cold voice echoed through the tunnels. "Children of the fallen house, your running ends tonight." Jake froze. Even Lyra and Kyle looked terrified. From the darkness ahead stepped a tall figure, a Dominion commander, clad in black, angular armor that shimmered faintly like liquid metal. His helmet split open slightly, revealing sharp, alien features and glowing crimson eyes. Lyra whispered the name like a curse. "Veyran." Kale's voice trembled. "He killed our parents." Veyran's power commander Veyran raised one hand, and suddenly, the metal pipes around them bent and twisted as if they were made of paper. Sparks rained from the ceiling as chunks of debris crashed to the floor. Jake raised his rifle and fired. The bullet never reached its target. Veyran caught it midair with his power and crushed it into dust. "You can't fight him," Lyra whispered, pulling Jake back. Veyran stepped closer, his deep voice calm but terrifying. "Give me the Heirs, Earthling, and I may let you live." Jake clenched his jaw, standing between him and the twins. "Not happening." The commander tilted his head slightly. "Brave, but foolish." Kale's last stand before Veyran could strike, Kale stepped forward, his pendant blazing with white light. He screamed, and a shockwave of energy blasted down the tunnel, throwing Veyran backward into the wall with a thunderous crash. Jake grabbed Lyra and pulled Kale away, but Kale collapsed to his knees, his body trembling violently. Lyra caught him, tears forming in her glowing eyes. "You used too much energy. You'll burn yourself out." Kyle coughed weakly but smiled. "I had to protect you." Behind them, Veyran slowly stood back up, his armor cracked but his crimson eyes burning brighter. "This is only delaying." "The inevitable," he hissed. The final chase. Jake pulled the twins through a side hatch into a deeper section of the maintenance tunnels. They ran through darkness past broken pipes and rusted ladders until they finally reached a sealed underground door. Lyra placed her pendant against the door's surface. It scanned her energy, and with a hiss, the heavy door slid open, revealing a hidden chamber filled with strange alien technology. Inside, glowing conduits pulsed softly, and a tall crystalline structure stood in the center, covered in unfamiliar symbols. Lyra's eyes widened. The pod's message was right. This is one of the royal waypoints, a safe house, and from before the war. Jake looked around, trying to process everything. "So your family planned this?" Kale nodded weakly. "They knew the Dominion would come. They left us places to hide, and clues to fight back." The hunters arrive. The underground chamber shook violently. Dust rained from the ceiling as the walls trembled under an unseen force. Jake shielded his eyes from the falling debris while holding the twins close. The massive door that had kept them safe began to bend inward, groaning under the pressure. On the other side, a voice spoke like thunder. "You cannot hide from me, heirs of the fallen house." It was Commander Veyran. Lyra clutched Jake's arm, her glowing blue eyes wide with fear. "He's breaking through," she whispered. Kale's pendant flickered weakly. He was still exhausted from using his powers earlier. Jake gritted his teeth, raising his rifle. He wasn't ready, but he had no choice. "Stay behind me," he said firmly. "Whatever happens, don't let them take you." The breach with a deafening roar. The metal door exploded inward, ripped apart by invisible force. Veyran stepped into the chamber, tall and terrifying in his black liquid metal armor. His crimson eyes glowed like burning embers in the dark. Behind him, a squad of Dominion soldiers marched in, their plasma rifles humming with lethal energy. Jake fired 3 quick shots. The bullets stopped midair, crushed into dust by Veyran's power. The commander's voice was cold and sharp. "Earthling, hand them over, or die screaming." Jake raised his rifle again, defiant. "Guess I'll scream then." Lyra awakens before Veyran could strike. Lyra stepped forward, her pendant flaring bright blue. "Stay back," she shouted, her voice trembling yet powerful. The moment her pendant reached full glow, an energy pulse erupted from her tiny body, throwing 2 Dominion soldiers across the chamber. Sparks exploded from their weapons as they hit the wall. Jake's jaw dropped. "You can do that too?" Lyra turned to him, her eyes blazing like twin suns. I didn't know I could," she whispered. Varen didn't flinch. Instead, he smiled darkly. "Ah, the power stirs. Good. Use it, little heir. The more you awaken, the easier it will be. When I take it from you." The Genesis core revelation. Jake blinked. "Take what from them?" Varen stepped closer, his voice low and venomous. "They are not just heirs to a throne, Earthling. They are keys. Within their blood lies the Genesis core, the energy that forged our empire and destroyed 1,000 worlds." Jake's stomach dropped. "Wait, you're saying they carry a weapon?" Varen's glowing crimson gaze burned into him. "Not a weapon, a god's heart, and tonight I will claim it." Kale's weak voice broke the silence. "You'll never control it." Varen's grin widened beneath his helmet. "I don't need to control it, boy. I only need to own it." The battle begins. Varen raised one clawed hand, and the entire chamber trembled. Metal shards lifted from the floor, spinning around him like a storm of blades. Jake dove behind a broken console, pulling the twins down with him. He peeked out just as the first soldier aimed his plasma rifle. Zap! A blue bolt sizzled past his head, scorching the wall. Jake fired back, hitting the soldier square in the chest, but the Dominion armor absorbed the impact like it was nothing. "We can't fight them head on," Jake shouted. Lyra placed her small hands on the ground. Her pendant glowed brighter and brighter until cracks of blue light spread through the chamber floor. Suddenly, the metal beneath the soldiers collapsed, swallowing 2 of them into a deep crevice. Jake stared in shock. "You just broke the floor." "I don't know how," she whispered, trembling. "It's like the energy listens to me." Kyle's hidden gift, Kale, still weak, struggled to his feet. His pendant flickered dimly as he whispered something, in their alien tongue. Then the entire chamber hummed, low and deep like a living heartbeat. Jake felt his ears pop. The air grew heavy, and suddenly, the Dominion soldiers froze mid-step. Their rifles floated from their hands, drifting upward. What's happening?" Jake whispered. Kale's glowing eyes locked onto Varen. "I'm bending gravity," he said softly. "But I can't hold it for long." The soldiers strained against invisible weight, their armor groaning, but Varen stood completely still, unaffected. He tilted his head, crimson eyes burning brighter. "You've grown stronger," he said. "Good. That makes taking your power more satisfying." The hunter unleashed. Varen raised both arms. The walls ripped apart, chunks of metal flying like knives. Sparks rained everywhere. Jake shoved the twins behind a console and ducked as a massive steel beam crashed down where they just stood. The commander moved like living lightning, closing the distance in a blink. His hand shot forward, wrapping around Jake's throat, lifting him off the ground effortlessly. Jake clawed at his armored grip, gasping for air. "You can't have them," he choked out. Varen's voice was a whisper of death. "Everything you love will burn." Suddenly, a blinding blue flash filled the chamber. Lyra stood tall, both hands raised. Her pendant glowed so bright it lit the entire room. "No," she screamed. A shockwave exploded outward, throwing Varen back for the first time. Escape through the core. The crystalline structure at the chamber's center suddenly reacted to Lyra's surge. Symbols lit up and a hidden gateway opened, swirling with blue energy like a living portal. Lyra grabbed Jake's arm, pulling him toward it. "This is a waypoint," she shouted. "It leads to another safe house." Varen roared, his voice shaking the air. "You will not escape me." Red drones poured into the chamber, their blasters locking onto the group. Jake fired wildly as he ran, dropping 3 drones before their bolts could hit. Sparks exploded around them, lighting up the chaos. Kale stumbled, nearly falling, but Jake scooped him up and pushed forward. The portal's pull grew stronger, humming louder, reacting to the twins' presence. "Go!" Jake yelled. The final moment. Just as they reached the edge of the portal, Varen lunged forward, his clawed hand barely grazing Kyle's pendant. The entire chamber exploded in light. Jake felt himself being ripped apart, falling and floating at the same time. His ears rang, his vision blurred, and then silence. They landed hard on cold stone. Jake gasped for breath, looking around. They were no longer in the underground chamber. They stood inside a massive alien hall, walls covered in golden symbols, and a giant throne sat at the far end. Lyra stared in awe, whispering softly, "This is the Vault of Kings." Kale turned to Jake, pale and shaking. "Varen won't stop," he said weakly. "He'll follow us. He always follows." Jake swallowed hard, gripping his rifle tightly. "Then we make sure we're ready when he does." The secret within. The Vault of Kings was silent. Dim golden light glimmered across alien symbols carved into towering walls. Strange pillars of crystal rose from the floor, each pulsing faintly, like hearts that had been asleep for centuries. Jake stood at the center, his breath heavy, still shaken from the fight with Varen. Behind him, Lyra and Kale slowly recovered, their pendants glowing faintly in the quiet. For the first time since finding them, there were no drones, no soldiers, no blasters firing through the dark. Only silence. But Jake didn't trust it. Silence, he had learned, was often the most dangerous sound of all. A Hall of Ghosts Lyra stepped forward, her small hand brushing across the nearest crystal pillar. At her touch, the pillar responded. Symbols lit up in flowing patterns racing across its surface. Suddenly, a holographic figure flickered into view. A tall alien woman with eyes that glowed like Lyra's stood before them. Her voice was soft but carried infinite weight. "If you have reached this place, my children, it means we are gone." Lyra froze. "Mother," she whispered, barely breathing. Kale stumbled forward, his glowing eyes wide. "This is a memory echo," he said softly. "She's not real. Just a recording." The hologram continued. "Within you lies more than blood. Within you lies the Genesis core, the last fragment of our people's living power. Protect it. Do not awaken it, unless there is no other choice." Jake frowned. "Awaken what?" "Exactly." Kale turned to him, his voice barely above a whisper. "If we awaken the core, we stop being who we are." Earth under siege. Before Jake could ask more, the vault trembled. Dust rained from the high ceiling as the walls shuddered. A deep rumble rolled through the chamber. Jake sprinted to the nearest balcony, peering out through a massive arch carved into the stone. His heart sank. High above the earth, Dominion warships blotted out the stars. Dozens of them. Dark, silent predators drifting across the void. From the lead mothership, fiery streaks rained down into Earth's atmosphere, thousands of drop pods descending like burning meteors. Lyra's voice cracked with panic. "They've activated the harvest protocol." Jake turned sharply. "What's that?" Kale's glowing eyes dimmed, his voice heavy with dread. "They're not just here for us anymore, they're here to burn the planet." The weapon in the vault's hologram shifted suddenly, revealing a new image. A massive alien weapon, hidden deep beneath Earth's crust. Its design was elegant but terrifying. Dozens of rings around a central crystal core, energy spiraling like a captured star. Lyra gasped. "This is the Crown Key's guardian," she whispered. Jake raised an eyebrow. "English, please." Kale turned to him. "It's a weapon," he said simply. "One hit could erase an entire Dominion fleet." Jake blinked. "Wait, there's a planet killer buried under our feet. And you forgot to mention that?" Lyra shook her head quickly. "It's locked. We can't activate it, not without the crown key." Jake crossed his arms. "Let me guess. That's lost." Kyle hesitated. "Not lost and stolen by Varen." Varen's trap before Jake could curse. The vault doors exploded inward, showering sparks and stone fragments. Commander Varen stepped into the hall, his black armor cracked from their last encounter, but his crimson eyes burning brighter than ever. Behind him, 24 Dominion soldiers marched in with mechanical precision. Jake raised his rifle instinctively. Of course, he found us. Varen's deep voice filled the chamber like rolling thunder. You've led me right to the vault, and now it's mine. Kale stepped in front of Jake, trembling but defiant. You'll never control the core. Varen tilted his head, smiling faintly beneath his helm. I don't need control, little heir, I need chaos. The twins awakening, the Dominion soldiers charged. Jake fired, dropping one soldier, but plasma bolts scorched the pillars around him, sending shards of crystal flying. Kale's pendant flared. He raised his small hands and shouted, his voice shaking. Gravitas. Suddenly the entire hall shifted. Gravity flipped sideways and Dominion soldiers slammed into the walls with bone-crunching force. Weapons flew from their hands, spinning wildly before clattering to the floor. Jake ducked behind a pillar, eyes wide. Remind me never to make you mad. But Kale was pale, sweating, his pendant dimming rapidly. Don't push yourself, Lyra cried, grabbing his arm. Then her pendant blazed to life on its own. A column of blue light erupted from the floor, spiraling around her. Lyra, no! Kyle shouted. Too late, a surge of raw power poured from her body, bending the vault's symbols into glowing streams. The holographic memory flickered and shifted, revealing something hidden beneath layers of encryption. Another recording. The hidden truth. A tall alien king appeared, his voice urgent and heavy. If the core awakens before the heirs are ready, it will consume them, and when it does, the Genesis core will choose its own master. Jake's stomach dropped. Wait, so if Varen gets close enough? Kale finished his sentence, his voice tight with fear. The core might choose him. Before they could react, Varen raised his arm, activating the stolen crown key. The entire vault screamed with energy. Blue lightning danced across the walls, and the crystal pillars shattered one by one. Jake grabbed the twins and ran, but Varen's voice echoed like a war drum. Run if you wish, little heirs. The core will be mine. Betrayal as they fled. Deeper into the vault, a sudden sharp sound made Jake freeze. A figure stepped from the shadows. A woman in sleek silver armor. She wasn't Dominion, and she wasn't human. Her glowing violet eyes locked on the twins. Lyra whispered in shock, Ceres. Kale's face hardened. You were supposed to protect us. Ceres tilted her head, expression unreadable. I was, she said softly. But Varen offered me something greater. Jake cursed under his breath. Great. Another traitor. Ceres drew twin plasma blades, their edges sizzling with deadly energy. You won't leave this vault alive. The power awakens. The vault of kings was collapsing. Cracks ran across the ancient crystal pillars, glowing like veins of molten fire. The air shook with energy as the Genesis core, buried deep beneath the chamber, began to awaken. Jake pulled the twins close, his voice rough and urgent. We need to move, now! But Lyra and Kale stood frozen, their pendants glowing brighter with every passing second. The core wasn't just waking up. It was calling to them. From the shattered gateway behind them, Commander Varen stepped forward, holding the stolen crown key high. Crimson light rippled through his black armor as if the core's energy was already flowing into him. His voice was deep, calm, and terrifying. Run if you want, little heirs, but the core has already chosen its master. The core's pull. Jake tried to drag the twins away, but Kale staggered, clutching his chest. I can't, he whispered, his glowing eyes locked on the churning light beneath the cracked floor. It's pulling us in. Lyra trembled, her small fists clenched tight. It wants us, but something else is fighting for it. Jake turned sharply toward Varen. You mean him? The commander smiled faintly, his crimson eyes burning brighter. The Genesis core doesn't belong to them, he said, his voice like poisoned silk. It belongs to the strongest, and I am inevitable. Suddenly, a massive surge of energy erupted from the floor, throwing Jake backward. He hit a broken pillar hard, the breath knocked out of him. When his vision cleared, he saw something that froze his blood. The core's light had formed 3 spiraling streams, one toward Lyra, one toward Kale, and one toward Varen. The merge begins, Kale screamed as his pendant flared, white-hot energy coursing through his small body. Lyra cried out too, collapsing to her knees as blue lightning crawled up her arms. Varen stood tall, his armor cracking as dark red streams of power flowed into him. His laughter shook the hall. Jake stumbled forward, shouting over the chaos. "Make it stop, you'll tear yourselves apart," Lyra gasped, her voice trembling. "If we merge, we can control it." Kyle met her gaze, sweat dripping down his pale face. "If we don't, he takes everything." Jake's stomach dropped. Merging? What does that even mean? Kyle's glowing eyes turned to him, filled with pain. "It means we become one." Cirrus returned before they could decide. A sharp hiss cut through the roar. From the shadows above, Cirrus, the silver-armored traitor, dropped down, plasma blades igniting with a deadly hum. Jake raised his rifle instinctively, but Cirrus' movement was too fast. In a blink, she stood between the twins and Varen, her voice calm but cold. "Step aside, Commander. The core isn't yours." Varen tilted his head, his crimson eyes narrowing. "You would betray me now?" Sarah spun her blades, the energy humming louder. "I never served you. I served the core." Jake cursed under his breath. Great. Another lunatic worshipping the planet killer. Battle in the vault erupted. Into chaos. Varen lunged at Cirrus, his black gauntlet glowing with crimson power. She met his strike, plasma blades clashing against his force field, sending shockwaves through the chamber. Jake ducked as fragments of crystal rained down around him. Dominion soldiers flooded through the ruined doors, rifles blazing. Blue plasma bolts streaked across the vault, scorching walls and melting stone. Jake fired back, dropping 2 soldiers before diving behind a broken pillar. Lyra raised her hands instinctively. Her pendant pulsed once, and suddenly a wall of blue energy erupted in front of them, deflecting incoming fire. Jake stared, breathless. "You made a shield." "I didn't mean to," she whispered, trembling. Kale touched her shoulder, adding his strength. The shield brightened, holding firm against the onslaught. But above them, the core's light was growing wilder. The entire chamber shook violently as more energy poured out. Earth burns. A deep rumble came from above ground. Jake glanced through the cracked ceiling and froze. Through the fissures, the sky was on fire. Dominion warships unleashed beams of plasma, ripping through Earth's defenses. Cities burned in the distance. Entire power grids collapsed, and sirens wailed faintly even from miles below. Kale looked up, his voice hollow. "They're burning everything." Jake clenched his fists. "Then we end this. Now." The twins' choice Lyra turned to Kale, tears shining in her glowing eyes. "If we merge, Kale, there's no going back." He nodded slowly. "If we don't, everyone dies." Jake shook his head furiously. "No, I won't let you do this. You're just kids." Kale met his gaze with unnatural calm. "We stopped being children the moment our world burned." Before Jake could argue, the twins joined hands. Their pendants flared white and blue, merging into a single blinding light. The energy between them crackled violently, bending the air around them. Varen roared in fury and leapt toward them, the crown key blazing. "You dare defy me?" The Genesis awakens. The moment Varen's hand reached for the twins, the core awakened fully. A colossal pillar of energy erupted upward, blasting through the vault and tearing into the heavens. The shockwave threw everyone, Jake, Cirrus, soldiers, even Varen, against the walls. For a heartbeat, time seemed to stop. In that frozen moment, Jake saw visions, alien cities, forgotten wars, entire galaxies burning under the Dominion's rule, and at the center of it all, the Genesis core pulsing like a living heart. Then came a voice, soft, ancient, everywhere at once. Choose on your master. The twist Jake expected the core to choose the twins, but it didn't. The streams of energy split, half surging into Lyra and Kale and the other half into Jake. Pain ripped through his body as alien symbols burned across his skin. His vision exploded into patterns of light and sound. Lyra screamed, reaching for him. "Jake, stop!" But the core had already touched him. When the energy faded, Jake stood tall, his eyes glowing faintly like the twins. "What just happened?" he whispered. Kyle stared at him in shock. "It bonded with you." Varen rose from the rubble, his armor cracked, his face twisted with fury. "No," he growled. "That power is mine." The vault trembled violently as the core's final surge prepared to unleash. One more burst, enough to destroy everything, escape or extinction. The Vault of Kings was no longer a sanctuary. It had become a war zone. The Genesis core blazed at the center of the ancient hall, now fully awake, its spiraling energy stretching far into the heavens. The floor cracked beneath their feet, and the walls trembled under the weight of unimaginable power. Outside, Dominion warships blotted out the stars. Earth's sky burned crimson as entire cities fell under relentless orbital strikes. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, drowned beneath the roar of destruction. And yet, inside the vault, silence hung for a single heartbeat. Jake stood at the edge of the abyss, his chest heaving, his rifle clenched tightly. Beside him, Lyra and Kale held hands, their pendants fused into a single glowing shard, pulsing in rhythm with the core. Across the fractured floor stood Commander Varen, battered but unbroken. His black armor glimmered faintly, cracked from battle, his crimson eyes burning like a dying star. In his hand, the stolen crown key blazed brighter than ever. For a moment, they stared at each other, hunter and protector, predator and prey. Then, Varen spoke, his voice deep and calm like the shadow before a storm. "It ends here. The core belongs to me, and so does your world. The Genesis awakens." The core roared. A shockwave erupted, throwing shards of crystal into the air. Jake was knocked backward but somehow managed to keep his footing. He could feel it inside him now. A strange alien hum thrumming beneath his skin, connected to the core itself. Kale turned to him, glowing eyes wide. "It's inside you," he whispered. "The core bonded with you." Jake shook his head, dazed. "I don't want it." "You have no choice," Lyra said softly, her voice trembling. "The core chooses its protectors, and it chose us, all three of us." Before Jake could reply, Varen struck. With a roar, the commander slammed the crown key into the ground. A ring of red energy erupted outward, sending Jake and the twins tumbling across the chamber. The core's light dimmed slightly as if resisting his control. Varen stepped forward, every word a growl. "Do you hear it, Heirs? It calls to me now. When I take it, your people, your planet, will kneel." Cirrus's redemption, a flash of silver, cut through the chaos. Cirrus, the traitor, the one who had betrayed the twins, emerged from the shadows, dual plasma blades igniting with a deafening hiss. She launched herself at Varen, striking with blinding speed. Sparks exploded as her blades clashed against his crimson shield. "You were my commander," she shouted, her voice raw with fury. "But you were never my king." Varen caught one of her blades mid-strike, twisting it from her grip effortlessly. With a brutal swing, he hurled her across the vault, crashing her into a crystal pillar. Cirrus coughed, blood on her lips, but her violet eyes burned with defiance. "Kill me if you want, but you'll never control the core." Varen didn't even look at her. "I don't need control," he said coldly. "I am control." Earth's last stand above. The battle reached its peak. Dominion warships descended lower, unleashing waves of plasma fire across Earth's major cities. Human fighter jets swarmed the skies but were obliterated instantly by alien weapons. From deep beneath the vault, a new threat stirred. the planetary defense failsafe hidden by the alien kings long ago. The Genesis core had awakened it. Massive, energy conduits rose from the Earth's crust. Ancient alien towers hidden for millennia, their purpose now revealed. They powered up slowly, humming like titans awakening from their graves. Kale stared in awe. They built these to protect the core, he said softly. But if they fire without control, Lyra's voice dropped to a whisper. They won't protect Earth, they'll destroy it. Jake clenched his fists. Then we don't let Varen take another step. The twins Ascension Lyra and Kale knelt by the core's edge, holding hands tightly. Their pendants merged completely, becoming a single crystalline shard glowing with impossible light. Lyra whispered softly, her voice trembling. Kyle, we have to awaken it. Kale shook his head, fear in his glowing eyes. If we open ourselves to the core completely, we won't survive. Her eyes met his, shining brighter than ever. If we don't, everyone dies. Together, they closed their eyes. And then it happened. Streams of blue and white energy surged into their bodies. Their forms shimmered, lifted inches above the ground as alien symbols spiraled across their skin. The vault walls pulsed in response, alive with ancient power. Jake shielded his eyes from the blinding light. What's happening to them? He shouted. Ceres, bleeding but conscious, whispered faintly. They're becoming what they were always meant to be, the living conduits of the Genesis core. Jake's awakening, suddenly. Jake felt it too. The core reached for him, its power flowing into his veins like liquid fire. His rifle dropped from his hands as his body locked in place, glowing symbols burning faintly across his arms. Kale's voice echoed inside his mind, though his lips didn't move. You're linked to us now, Jake. The core trusts you. Jake gritted his teeth. I don't want its trust, I want to survive. Lyra's voice joined in, soft but firm. Then fight with us. Together. The final clash. Varen roared, slamming the crown key into the ground again. Crimson lightning exploded outward, tearing through crystal pillars and shattering the vault's ceiling. Dominion soldiers stormed in, blasters blazing, but Ceres intercepted them, cutting through wave after wave with her plasma blades, moving like a silver phantom. Jake sprinted forward, now glowing faintly with the core's energy. He raised his hands instinctively, and a wall of pure force erupted in front of him, deflecting incoming plasma bolts. He stopped, stunned. I did that? Kyle's voice called out, echoing through the chaos. Don't think. Feel. Jake clenched his fists and the shield became a spear. With a shout, he launched it at Varen, but the commander caught it mid-air, snapping it apart with sheer will. You are nothing, Varen growled, advancing slowly. The core will obey me, or burn with you. The choice. The Genesis core reached its peak. Energy screamed like a living god as the vault shook violently. Lyra turned to Jake, her voice desperate. If we push the core's power through you, we can destroy the Dominion fleet in one strike. Jake hesitated. And the price? Kale's voice cracked as he answered. The core will burn itself out, and us with it. Jake's throat tightened. You'll die? Lyra nodded slowly, tears shining in her glowing eyes. If we don't, Earth dies instead. Jake stared at them, heart pounding. He had no words. Finally, he whispered, Do it. The Genesis unleashed. The twins placed their hands on Jake's chest. The core responded instantly, its spiraling energy collapsing into a single blinding beam. It surged through Jake, through the twins, and straight into the heavens. Above Earth, the Dominion fleet froze. The beam struck the lead mothership, and the entire armada imploded in silence, vanishing into a cascade of starlight. But inside the vault, the backlash ripped through everything. Jake screamed as alien energy tore at his body, threatening to rip him apart. Lyra and Kale held on, their glowing forms fading, their voices echoing faintly in his mind. Protect them, Jake. Protect our home. The silence. After when the light finally faded, the vault was in ruins. Dominion ships were gone. Earth was safe. Jake lay on the cracked floor, breathing hard. His body trembled, glowing faintly with lingering core energy. He turned weakly toward the twins. Lyra and Kyle lay motionless, their pendants dim, but still faintly pulsing. Jake exhaled shakily, tears blurring his vision. "You're alive," he whispered. "Thank God. You're alive." Saris limped over, lowering her blades. "For now," she said softly. "But Varen isn't dead. The core rejected him, but he'll rise again." Jake clenched his fists, staring at the faint glow beneath the cracked floor where the Genesis core slept once more. "It chose us," he murmured. "So we finish what we started."